the blood cells don't replicate in the blood, so it's no problem to them. They're replicated in the bones. But anything living in the blood can't survive. So it gets rid of things like AIDS and other blood illnesses, without fail, and fairly short thing. And I published an article on it and said, here's a little blood purifier that you can build for $19 in parts, and will do the job. And this was proven over and over and over again by medical groups and so forth. And it was first discovered by two doctors from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, the Yeshiva University in New York, and where they passed an electric current through blood and noticed that it was killing all of the pathogens in the blood, and they got the patent on it. And but later they denied knowing anything about it.
Strange things happen.
Well, at any rate, I published the article on it, and then I published reprints of the article for people. And the next thing I know, the post office is here and said that's illegal. And if you send anything like that through the mail again, it'll be a $25,000 fine because this is fraudulent. And he said anything that is not authorized by the FDA is fraudulent. And that's an $800 million process that takes several years, up to around 10 years to do. So by that time, I discovered that a change in diet does the whole thing anyway, so why fight about it? If you can get rid of AIDS by going to a raw food diet and stopping the other poisons, the heck with the blood purifier. But yes, it does a beautiful job, and if they would spend, it would cost about $5 each to make little units, commercially, and each one could cure 100 people over in Africa, where you have millions and millions of people dying of AIDS.
So you're suggesting that the $50 billion that Bush gave to Bono to cure AIDS in Africa was a waste of money?
and Bill Gates is wasting billions over there.
Well, at least that's his own money.
Right. Yeah. So much for ignorance.
Ignorance is bliss, I would imagine.
I don't think there's any case where that's true.
Yes. Okay, getting back on, you mentioned hypnotism there. Your belief is that anybody can be hypnotized, and therefore, they can be made to do anything they want. Then.
Well, just about. I think the Roman Catholics said that give me a child until he's 7, and I'll have him for life.
Yes, I thought it was Lenin.
And we do the same thing with Islam. So people believe so strong they're willing to kill themselves over their belief.
Yeah. But was the hypnotism in itself?
Or kill a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah, kill a whole bunch of other people and themselves.
Right, yeah, well.
So you're saying, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, he could be a Manchurian candidate. Is it, in your opinion...
Yeah, there's a nice book on the subject.
Is it possible that a Manchurian candidate can exist?
Oh, sure. Well, look at the Muslims. They believe thoroughly.
Yes, they do.
And, look at the Christians. They believe thoroughly. They believe in Jesus. And they get all disturbed if you tell them about the 16 saviors before Jesus, most of them born of a virgin birth on December 25th, and most of them died on the cross and were resurrected 3 days later.
Yes, that point is brought out very well in the movie Zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's the name of the movie. There was 3 or 4 guys that were, it was the same part they played going back a few thousand years before that.
Right, sure. Now that's been around. Well, we've always needed to have gods to explain things we don't understand.
Absolutely. Can I ask you about, seeing that you were in the Second World War and it played such a prominent role in your life, can I ask you about Pearl Harbor? Do you think, some people say that the Americans had the Japanese code broken months and months and months prior to Pearl Harbor.
Well, there's a nice book on the subject called, let's see, by Stinnett, and Day of Infamy. And he spent years fighting the government to get the documents on it. But yes, we had broken the code. Roosevelt knew the names of the admirals of the Japanese aircraft carriers. As a matter of fact, Roosevelt's the one that pushed Japan by cutting off their oil supply so that they went to war with us. And it was intentional. The American people were, I think it was 82% against going into the war in Europe. And Hitler had taken, or Germany had taken over all of Europe except England, and was about to be able to take over England. And as a desperate move, they had to get America into the war. So Roosevelt organized it so that the Japanese would attack us and get us involved there, and then we get into the war in Europe too, which is exactly what happened. And the book by Stinnett goes into all of the details on it. Roosevelt knew every detail. He made sure that we had terrible General and Admiral Kimmel and General Short at Pearl Harbor that blundered everything, and made sure. And of course, he made sure that we had no aircraft carriers in there, and none of them anywhere near, so that they wouldn't get harmed. And the only thing that got harmed was an old battleship. That battleships were out of business by then anyway. We had General Mitchell. You remember the court-martial of General Mitchell?
Yeah.
And he said that airplanes could sink battleships, and he got court-martialed for saying that.
That was in the...
So he went out and proved it.
In the early 20s or whatever.
Right. As a matter of fact, my dad was working under General Mitchell at Langley Air Force Base, and General Mitchell came out to dinner with us at our house several times. So it was kind of a personal thing. I'd met him, but I was too young to remember it. I was 1 and 2 years old.
So Admiral Campbell, of course, and Short, they were sacrificed for the greater good of the common cause or whatever.
Right. Well, they were dummies.
They were the patsies of that thing.
Sure. And it got us into the war without losing anything more than a couple thousand people, or I think 3,000, and a battleship.
So the man that wrote this book, he is saying that the American government sacrificed 3,000 of its own citizens just to get us into the war.
Yep. Now what? 3,000, that's nothing. Good Lord. Look at how many people we lose in wars.
Absolutely. 3,000 was nothing compared to how many wars.
Heck, we're losing 100,000 Americans every year through hospital mistakes.
Well, most people, if you suggested to a person on the street that the United States government would actually kill 3,000 of their own citizens, they would not believe you, of course.
Of course not. And they probably believe that 9/11 was attacked by Muslims. Well, they haven't read any of the books on the subject. I've read, 12 books on the subject.
I saw there briefly just this morning, so I haven't had time to go through it closely, but Jesse Ventura,
he did a wonderful job on that.
And it was broadcast a few nights ago, but I don't have cable. But you
don't have a internet either, because it's on there. I've got it right here.
Yeah, I just saw it now, and I haven't had time to look on it, but I will, of course, look at it. But he did bring up a point that I want to ask you about, seeing that you worked in the early development of cell phones. And
I'm the one that started that industry.
That's correct. And a great portion of the 9/11 storyline is based upon the fact that Olson got a call from his wife, Barbara Olson, on one of the planes. And it was always my contention that Olson was not telling the truth, in my opinion.
Well, they tried to replicate that and failed totally.
it's you being an expert on cell phone technology, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
It is impossible, or at least it was in that year, to make a cell phone call from 30,000 feet in the air.
As I said, they have tried to replicate that and totally failed.
And also, it was impossible for her to make a call from the airline phones, according to Jesse Ventura anyway, because that plane wasn't equipped with backseat airline phones. Is that correct?
As far as I know, and it seems a little difficult for people with box cutters to take over an airplane.
It does seem a bit difficult. So, well, just with regards to 9/11 alone, what are the chances of this? People argue about 9/11 back and forth, but surely this one little instance with regards to phone call, upon which so much else of the story is based.
Mm-hmm.
Surely Jesse Ventura now has proved that that phone call could not possibly have taken place.
Right. Yeah, but you've got a long list of things. My God. Hundreds of things that have no reasonable explanation with the official story. You know, you've got thousands of engineers saying, look, buildings don't collapse. They've never in history collapsed due to a fire. And on. But I won't go through the long list.
We don't need to go through the long list. But the difference is...
Start reading some of the books. My God, there's over a dozen good books on the subject.
The regular man on the street does not understand about buildings collapsing.
Well, he doesn't read anything.
Yeah, he doesn't read it. But
he's busy watching the ball games.
Yes, but every man should be able to understand the significance of that phone call not being possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You should also understand that, as a matter of fact, there's been quite a bit just in the last day or so here about the attack on the Pentagon and how the hole made in the Pentagon was too small for any plane, no place where the engines hit it, and no seats, no debris, no bodies, no luggage.
Well, now that you mentioned bodies and luggage, back I think in 1983, I could be wrong on the year, but about that time there was a mid-air explosion off the coast of Ireland, an Air India plane, and there was a huge, obviously it wasn't a rescue mission, but it was a recovery mission, and all the bodies and the luggage, not all, but a great portion of the bodies and the luggage was able to be brought ashore and processed and taken care of in a decent manner.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it true that in the crash in Pennsylvania that no luggage or bodies was ever recovered from that site?
That's right, and no parts of seats, no engines.
And surely the relatives of the people who had loved ones on that site, have they not come out and asked the obvious question, where is the remains, such as they are, of my nephew or whatever?
I'm sure they have, but remember that all of those flights involved had very few passengers registered. Flights leaving at essentially the same time, going to the same destinations, were loaded solid, and these flights all had just a few passengers on them.
It's mind-boggling. Another interesting.
Well, we have one thing after another, you know.
And another interesting plane crash was the Korean shoot-down back in whatever year that was, in the 80s as well. For some reason, there was never any bodies recovered from that disaster either.
Mm-hmm. I haven't read about that. But, you know, we have other things. We have, I love the way we keep pointing to the fact that, well, we were able to go to the moon, so we can do anything.
Yeah.
We didn't go to the moon. That whole thing was faked.
Now, the people that you will tell this, that they will say, well, how come the Russians didn't say it was fake then? Or how